All right, and welcome into another edition of Dude's Hockey Hotline. I am your host, Matt Diegert. You can find me on Twitter at Matt Diegert, and that guy with the finger, giving us the 1 second finger, was Beyond716. Brian, you can find him on Twitter at Beyond716. He also does the Coast to Coast podcast for us here on Do Network or Do Champions, and that's Wednesdays at 9 p.m. I want to thank everybody for joining us this morning. While we talk a little bit of Sabres, grab yourself a cup of coffee. It is 10 o'clock in the morning. Wake yourself up with some Sabres talk and enjoy yourself. Like I said, we're going to go through some stuff today. We don't want to do like we did last week and just continue to beat a dead horse, but I do want to give Brian his opportunity to speak on, the things with the things with Kevin Adams and the things that he said, the things that are going on this week with the palm tree stuff and how just. I don't even know what to call it anymore as far as how this organization is run, and it's almost like they can't take criticism. And welcome in, Brian. I was
Sorry
just going
about
over.
that. Just,
that's
yeah, I had to
okay.
get the
That's
door.
okay.
I apologize. It was right at stop.
That's
top of
perfectly
the show.
fine. Hey, we're that's what happens while you're live. You can't really stop life, right? So
Yeah.
definitely just thanking everybody for joining us this morning. And Brian, I want to thank you for hopping, being taking this ride with me every single week. Yes, like we
Really
said,
enjoy
life happens, and you were sick last week. Couldn't really have fun on the screaming fest that we had last week. But hopefully we don't get that animated this week, or I don't get that animated this week. But so how are you feeling this morning, Brian? Number one, and number two, how are the Sabres making you feeling?
Well, I had some palm oil to make me feel better, as per Kevin Adams.
Those palm trees. Those palm trees.
So, Matt, are you planting palm trees in your yard there up in Western New York now? You taking Kevin Adams' advice, and you're going to make your tropical now?
At this point, right now, it's the ground's pretty solid because we got like 2 feet of snow on it. But I'm sure those inflatable ones you can buy from CVS or Rite Aid are readily available. So
yeah. Oh, for sure.
We'll talk about that here in a minute too, because I got a couple points that I want to talk about that, and then we'll kind of leave that in the past as it goes. So go 100%. Ahead, Brian.
Well, listen, we're not going to go over everything from last week, right? But that press conference was a mitigated disaster, and it speaks to, it exploits the real problem with this franchise right now, right? Just to circle back to the Bills, after the Rex Ryan disaster, Terry Pegula took a step back and said, okay, I got to get someone like a Brandon Beane. I got to get someone to kind of make all the decisions. Then we got McDermott, and they kind of ran the show, and Pegula was sort of in the background, right? And we see the success. And it wasn't, forget even Josh Allen. Even before that, you could see the Bills were turning the corner.
Well, and that's the thing you have to remember, not to interrupt you, but you have to remember McDermott came first. Yeah. And then they allowed Doug Whaley to have his last draft, and then even though it was kind of the Sean McDermott show for the draft, they used a lot of the information from Doug Whaley and the scouts and everything like that, and then hired Brandon Beane afterwards. So it's almost like they got the coach in place, and it kind of feels like that's where we kind of are with the Lindy Ruff type situation right now. Is you got the coach in place that's probably going to be here for this year, next year, and maybe a couple more seasons after that until they get this thing turned around. But as far as that goes, it's who knows? Go ahead whenever you're ready, Brian.
No, absolutely no. That's very true, but I think, like you said, Lindy Ruff at this point right now really isn't. People are going to say Lindy Ruff was a mistake. No, it's not. It's not Lindy Ruff, right? It's not okay. If we all want Kevin Adams maybe to be replaced, right? But doing that alone is not going to fix this problem. Okay, the issue is Terry Pegula needs to say, "Hey, I'm going to take a little bit of a step back. I'm going to hire a team president, right? Let that team president pick their general manager. And fans of the Sabres will be happier if Terry Pegula can just admit, hey, I couldn't run a franchise day to day. I would need someone as an owner, even as fans as we are, right? As many opinions as we have, to run a team like that is a whole nother level. Like he just needs to take a step back and just say, hey, I could be that fan. Just like I'm surprised he hasn't learned from what happened with the Bills, that he hasn't applied that to the Sabres, right? That's the first thing that I don't understand.
Well, he did a couple years ago with Pat LaFontaine, bringing in Pat LaFontaine, hockey ops, and then Ted Nolan, and then letting Pat LaFontaine bring in Tim Murray. So, and then they kind of clashed, and Pat LaFontaine was like, I'm out. Like, you know, but I mean, it's 100% true that they do need to have that guy that is between Kevin Adams and Terry Pegula, because at this point it's like Kevin Adams has like the you know, carte blanche to do whatever, and we got to remember, yes, he's in what is this, 5 years into his tenure as GM, but he was still a first time GM. I mean, yeah, you know, but it also depends on how he's looked upon around the NHL too, and that's also one of the reasons why, you know, and we'll get into the Dylan Cousins rumors in a second and things like that, but it kind of comes down to it where that's why these trades might be hard, right? Because players don't want to come here because of the Jack Eichel situation, because it's like, oh, if I want a certain surgery, how am I going to, you know, they're just going to trade me anyways. So what if I get injured, they're going to just trade me anyways because I won't be able to go get the surgery that I want to get. Not saying that Jack shouldn't be here or anything like that, but I mean, it kind of, it's almost like, maybe you let him get the surgery that he wants and show that you're kind of like how the Bills are with, you know, letting the guys do, not necessarily do what they want, but, you know, take advantage of those things and take advantage of the advanced medical field at this point now in life that we have going on, and, you know, take advantage of those things. But now it's there. He's gone. Your Josh Allen that you had is gone, and you never really truly replaced him.
Yep, absolutely. And yeah, I wanted to come back. That I just thought this comment was pretty funny because, you know, we're supposed to be hockey heaven, and now it's turned the other direction.
Well, but also too, look at Dale. Yeah, I mean, he's 100% right, and it's true. And I'm not saying tanking was a bad thing, but truly, it kind of felt that way, right? Because you know, had they gotten McDavid, sure, 100%. I'm telling you, you get McDavid, we're not in this position that we're in right now.
Yeah, I wonder about that sometimes, Matt. I really do. Like,
I don't want to say he's the second coming of Gretzky or anything like that, but I mean, look at he's what, 8 years in, he's already got 1,000 points. Like, come on! Like, what are we doing?
He's at that. I mean, I've watched Gretzky. Listen, I'm old enough to remember Gretzky at his height. He was amazing. But I mean, I'll even say this to Dale. I think Lemieux was right there with him, and I know Dale. I'm going to give Dale credit for that too, because he said that a lot. But we you know, the thing with the Sabres is once they tank so hard, right? Remember the game against Arizona where the fans are clapping when we lost, and it was a really bad time. We did that for a 20% shot to get McDavid. If that was 100%, I would be more on board with the way that they did things, right? But
we traded a goaltender because he was playing too well.
Yep.
Like, what are we doing?
We draft Eichel, but see, that's the point where Terry Pegula, when they got Eichel, that's where Terry Pegula. You remember before we got Josh Allen, the Bills put a lot of resources and effort to say we're going to do whatever it takes to get that franchise quarterback, and it paid off, right?
Yep.
Once we're getting to the Eichel, that's where he said, I got to get the sharpest scouts, I got to get the sharpest GM and president in place when I'm going to get Jack Eichel in here, right? They had Sam Reinhart. We had the players. Go look at our roster. Brandon Montour, Sam Reinhart. Look at these players, Matt. We had the players. We had Ryan O'Reilly. Should have made him captain, not Jack Eichel. Ryan O'Reilly was team captain of Team Canada with guys like Sidney Crosby on the roster. Why? Anywhere do we think it was smart to give Jack Eichel the captain when we had a guy like Ryan O'Reilly on our roster?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the first mistake.
Love of hockey.
Yeah, right? I mean, that was the first mistake. I mean, that this franchise made. Was giving that to him at such a young age. I do agree with Dale to a point. But we all have to remember, and I said it with Pat Moran last week. We had one superstar. His name was Dominic Hasek. And
Yep.
I asked him a specific question, and I'll ask it to you and ask it to any of the listeners in the chat. When it comes down to it, do you think the Lindy Ruff system is more predicated on having that top end goalie? Because we saw what happened with his system in New Jersey. We saw what happened with it in Dallas.
Yep.
He couldn't really get anywhere when you don't have that, higher end goaltender in, backstopping and not being able. And we even saw it last 2 nights ago against the Rangers. UPL's standing on his head, and it almost is like, it's like, what is going on here?
Yep. No, and I think what Lindy Ruff's doing right now kind of speaks to these aren't the type of players that Lindy Ruff is comfortable with, right, in his system, right? I remember just thinking about Peters and Rivet. I was listening to one of their podcasts in the summer, and the one guy that they pointed out that was going to have trouble under Lindy Ruff was J.J. Peterka because of the way he plays and he doesn't backcheck, and it's turning out to be correct, right? We have players that don't have the skill sets to do the things that, and Lindy Ruff is trying to change that, right? He was talking about recently about moving Tage and Dylan Cousins off center, right? He's trying to lessen the load of what they're trying to do, so it kind of brings out their skill sets. These kind of changes, Matt, and the culture changes that Lindy Ruff is trying to make, it's not going to be fixed in 28 games. This is going to be over a year plus. This franchise is so damaged on the inside in terms of that. It's not a talent issue. The Sabres have talent to at least be a playoff team, right? Taxes aren't preventing the Sabres from being a playoff team. Taxes may be preventing us from being a Stanley Cup team. That's a whole nother conversation. And that's where Kevin Adams is disconnected, where we have an organization problem. We don't have a tax problem. The Rangers have high taxes. Yeah. They're a Stanley Cup contender. The Islanders made a few semis with the same tax codes that the Sabres are dealing with in New York. And there are teams in Kent. So we want a playoff team, right? And Dale brought up a good point, too, about the kind of team we used to be, right? A lot of Sabre fans may not be old enough to remember this, but before the 13, 14-year drought, I believe 35 years into our existence, we had the 4th best record in the NHL among all the franchises. We were a very good franchise. We were always solid. We were always in the playoffs. We were always, because we had that kind of team like Dale was talking about. So, it's and I think there's a lot of things like, right, with Matt, and I think we were so obsessed about skilled players, certain type of players, that we're not getting the right mix. And I think it's just going to take Lindy Ruff time to make that happen.
Yeah, and I do agree with that to a point, but when it comes down to it, you have a team that's basically the same team as it was 2 years ago when you missed the playoffs by a point. You have that you have the same team, and I understand because we touch on it a lot in when we talk about it, is the simple fact that when you had a player like Chris Drury come in here and he's like, where's the pictures of the Stanley Cup? We need somebody that's going to come in and basically put that stuff in their face. And I do feel like Lindy Ruff is, the guy to do that. But also, I want to know how much of his quote unquote growing up is, not yelling at these guys, but these guys need to get yelled at. You're professional athletes, right? So when it comes down to it, yell at the guys, get them kind of going, and make them, I don't want to say make them feel bad about themselves, but almost like you got to tear some of these guys down and build them back up almost at a certain point, because they're not playing hot. They're I screamed about it last week, is can we stop trying to go bar down? Just put the damn puck on the net and be done. At this point right now, you got to have guys that are gonna go forward, not backwards. Always playing constantly forward, hitting, and the Sabres were one of the top teams in the league in hitting in the first month of the season.
Yep.
Where's that been? It's almost like they became like, oh, this is all working. Now I'm gonna, sit back a little bit because we're winning, and instead of Lindy Ruff being like, "Yo, guys, you aren't putting as much effort in," even coddling them a little bit. But when it comes down to it, you guys are being played to play a child's game. Yeah. It's the same thing in the NFL. Grow the fuck up. I'm sorry, grow the fuck up. play hockey, go out and win games, do whatever you can to put this team on your back. And like, I don't know. The other thing that I have an issue with Lindy Ruff is, why the hell haven't we put the kid line back together? Like, he refuses to break up that top line. Like, 2 years ago, Quinn, Cousins, and Peterka, that line was always high flying and always putting in points and always scoring and always creating things and everything like that. Okay, move that to the top line. Move Tage Thompson down, because he ain't doing shit either. So maybe let's kind of move stuff around and kind of shake things up a little bit, because something is not working with this team when it should be. You have a very good goaltender in UPL at this point, that you've put a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort into developing him. He is now that 24, 25-year-old age where it's time to shit or get off the pot at this point with him. And I don't know what I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say anymore, because I mean, I'm a diehard Sabres fan. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, because we've talked about it before multiple times, is like our normal thing that we do and talk about is, you do coast to coast, I do third manageable. We talk about the Bills a lot on this because we're able to look at it as a pragmatic thing. And whereas the Sabres, I don't care. Like, I'm always going to see, I can talk about the Bills in a way that, is not like down on them, but also criticize them a little bit too for things that they're doing wrong, or praise them for doing. The Sabres, I'm looking at them through the blue and gold, colored glasses here, and all the time, because I'm a fan. I'm a fan first of the Sabres, and I'm so angry that we got to a point now again where we're going on 14 years of a playoff drought. And we haven't done. Kevin Adams has not got off his ass and done anything.
Yep. Yeah, I feel like I'm not sure. Listen, we do understand. The one thing I will side with Kevin Adams on, with the hard salary cap, it is a little difficult. It's a lot harder. It's the challenge to make the deals you want to make are harder. I totally understand that. But there's a lot of reasons for that too. Because of the organization that we have been the last 15 years has not made this. Because of the no movement clauses, we've been down this road before, right? If there were no movement clauses, I think the Sabres could have made a lot of trades by now, right? But they could be getting to a point, but we don't know what they've been doing. But I think I need a GM to come in here and say, okay, someone who's not emotionally attached to these players, right? Don't be afraid to move a JJ Peterka. Don't be afraid to move a Devin Levi. Don't be afraid to move a Dylan Cousins, which we're going to get into, right? It's okay. Like, something obviously isn't working here, right? So, as we're going to get into the Dylan Cousins rumors, do we really want Kevin Adams to be that architect?
See,
I mean, that's the other thing too. Like, we're getting to a point where we need some shakeups, but like we did with Sam Reinhart, right? And Dale's always brought up this point: players, there's it's funny. We watch the Sabres, right? And you see, and I'll see Zach Benson, right? He goes on the ice, and then he goes on the bench. I look at his face. I'm like, this team is so young. Right? I mean, how are we expecting too much out of these very young guys like 19, 20 you know what I mean? Like, players mature when they get 24, 25, 26, and we've been getting rid of those players like Middlestat and Reinhold.
But I mean, that's the thing you and I have talked about, a couple weeks ago, before you'd gotten the cold. When you're talking about a veteran player, you always think like 24 or 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, whatever. You think that, later stage of their career, they're a veteran player. These guys have been on. Tage Thompson was here when Jack Eichel was here. Like, let's be serious. Like, he was here because of the O'Reilly trade.
Yep.
You can't do much more than that. He's been here for 6 years now. 2019, 5 years now. 2019. So when it comes down to it, a lot of these guys that are here, your Tuck, your Thompson, even your Peterka, who's been here for 3 years now, Dylan Cousins, who's been here for 4 or 5 years. All these guys have played a lot of. I don't want to say meaningful hockey, because I consider meaningful hockey, your end of season situations and, playoffs. So there hasn't been a lot of meaningful hockey being played by those guys, but they've played a lot of, hockey that could have potentially been in a meaningful spot. Like they did go through that playoff push a couple years ago where they missed by one point. So I mean, I consider that meaningful hockey. But like, when it comes down to it, why? I mean, to answer your question, do I want Kevin Adams in place to do that? I don't know. I mean, I'd give him the chance to do it, because how much worse can it get? But also, when you bring it around to the whole Sam Reinhart thing, is we got a first and Devin Levi for him.
Yep.
That's stuff for 3, 4, 5 years in the future, when we traded for him a couple years ago, or traded him away a couple years ago. Thinking that Devin Levi is going to come in this year, next year, or the following year, and supplant UPL, or if they trade Dylan Cousins, they need to trade him for, I don't want to say King's ransom, because it's not going to be that, because of the way he's played. But I think that you need to get players that can play. You need to get guys that can put the puck in the net. You need to get guys that can help you now, not 3-4 years from now, when Kevin Adams may not even be here.
Mm-hmm. This is a good comment. I need to invest in plexiglass. The way Tage drills at every power play is a consumer case.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So let's get to it real quickly. I mean, what do you think about the Dylan Cousins rumors?
Well, listen, I do think where there's smoke, there's fire, right? I do think there's something in terms of what the Sabres want to do, right? You're looking to acquire. But the weird thing is they want top 6 talent, but is Dylan Cousins a top 6 forward? Is he a top 6 forward? Forget center. I'm talking forward, right? Mm-hmm. Like, Dale brought up a good point that maybe we should have had Casey Middlestat feeding the puck. Well, he said that for Tage, but even for a guy like Dylan Cousins as well, right? Would that be a benefit? Would the Sabres be better off with? Listen, I know JT Miller just came back for Vancouver. But what if we added a JT Miller to his roster? What if we added a Logan Couture, an older center that's been a top 6 guy, right? I don't. But the Dylan Cousins thing is, you're not.
What's that? You cut off. What was that,
Brian?
Brian?
Sorry about that. Yeah, my headphones just gave out. So we're not going to get dollar to dollar on that.
No, not at all. Especially because, I mean, of where he's been playing this year, is he's playing at such a lesser of a point. So you may have to include like a first or a second round pick to get, one of those top 6 forwards that's going to replace. But also too, you have almost $8 million in salary cap sitting there from Jeff Skinner. Why didn't that get replaced? Why hasn't that?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, there was part of me that thought, okay, maybe it's okay to have the salary cap space if the young guys produced, right? Let's say these young guys were producing this year, right, Matt? Let's say we were 8 games over 500 right now. Now the Sabres have the cap space where they could add somebody for the playoff run, and they easily have. What if you signed a guy? Oh, sorry about that. I'm not sure what's going on with my headphones right now. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Yeah, I got you.
Okay. So I'm not sure what's, let's say we signed a Patrick Laine, right, with that space. We were talking about Patrick Laine, or we got that. I mean, he's been hurt, right? Now we don't have space, and then we don't have the production. So, but also we could have utilized that cap space as well. So, like, we need a GM, we need a president to come in here to not be afraid to move off some of these prospects. We did it with Matthew Savoy, and we see what happened. Ryan McLeod was a good acquisition.
Right. No, I definitely agree with you.
Savoy turns out to be a really good player 2-3 years down the line. I'm not worried about that. He wasn't going to be that for the Sabres for at least 3-4 years. McLeod's been we should not be afraid to move off our prospects right now.
No, and I think that everybody not named Tage Thompson, UPL, or Alex Tuck is probably free game, or Rasmus Dahlin. I think everybody is, we talked about it a couple weeks ago. Would you be willing to trade Owen Power? At that point, I wasn't. now,
not
do
crazy
whatever you
about
can. Do whatever you can to, yeah, exactly. Do whatever you can at this
Alex
point
Tuch,
to get what you can.
I like Alex Tuch. Don't get me wrong. He's a Western New York guy, right? He loves this team. I would love to keep him, but if that's what it took to get a true, but again, I don't really think this is the total problem, right? If we do not address the real problem, if we don't address the problem Terry Pegula, and when Kevin Adams said, "I'm talking to Terry every day," about what? Right? Like, the owners should be getting briefed a couple times a week. Okay, here's what's going on with the team, and that's that, right? So there's a major problem. We don't have the right scouting, right? But is Terry going to put the money into the team? That's a whole other story, right?
Right.
That as a franchise, not gone a little bit, right? NHL is still really dependent on gate revenue more than any sport. I mean, it's getting better. You can see the cap going up, but the Sabres, it's a vicious cycle, right? If you want to, can you guys hear me okay?
I can hear you. You're cutting out a little bit in and out. There you go.
That. I'm going to try to resolve an issue on my side here. So it's something.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine.
They keep giving out. So, and I'm not sure why, and I apologize.
No. You're good. So while you're fixing that real quickly, I mean, one of the things that I wanted to bring up is I saw Oliver Wahlstrom actually go on waivers yesterday. Former first-round draft pick by the Islanders, 11th overall. He's somebody specifically that that I truly welcome into my co-host of the Third and Manageable podcast, Student Body Right. Thank you for filling in for Brian there while he's getting his headphone stuff figured out. And I want to actually take this time real quickly to switch gears a little bit, because you're kind of the finance guy, financier, whatever you want to call it. So you can kind of go through this with me a little bit, because we didn't talk about it last night on Third and Manageable, but the Bills added those 10 people, a group of 10 people that took over about 20% of the Bills. It kind of got me thinking, is, because we kind of know that some of that is going to be used towards opening up to, the female presence within football, because of, his daughter's potentially, moving into a more prominent role with the Bills once he gets a little bit older, and the problems with Kim Pegula and stuff like that. So we get that part of it, but also a lot of it too has to do with the overages of, I don't care what Terry Pegula says. It has to do with the overages of the new stadium, because they're about $1 billion over what it costs. Right now.
I mean, you're completely right. It has a ton to do with you need a robust balance sheet for operating capital. That's just what it is. I think David Tepper kind of embodies it the most with the Carolina Panthers. Just because you have the cap space doesn't mean you need to use the cap space. They're operating more of a business. So I would say, like, the question I raised to you guys is, where do we open up the conversation of not using the Sabres cap space, the allotted cap space? Does that spark a conversation? Keeping the team's balance sheet, and the operating capital robust and presenting a fluid net bottom line to attract investors. Is this a long-term play to possibly tip their hand into welcoming in private equity, much like they did at the only willing enterprise we do have in Buffalo with the Bills? We are aware that the Jordan Group came in last year, 2 years ago, and kicked their tires. Matt, I think you have a graphic for that.
The
Jordan Group, obviously they do have an Under Armour Bruin Sports Capital. It's been around since 2019. They're trying to inject fund operating capital because it is such an expansive, attractive market. So, Matt, I'd raise to you, do you think some of the reasons that we're not using some of this capital, not having like a win now enterprise, is because we are trying to attract minority investors? And I'll kick it back to Beyond. I just thought it was a conversation worth having.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's definitely something that it's very interesting thought. as far as that goes, because it truly does, hey, we have all this cap space, we have these young players, we have, we're worth what, we bought it for 189, and now we're worth over 1.13 billion dollars. I'm looking for the correct graphic there. There we go. And that's still 30th out of 32 teams. Like it's crazy to me that the Sabres are rated that or for that amount of money is 1.13 billion, and they're still only ranked 30th out of 32 teams. So I mean, what do you think that he brought up a good point as far as saying that goes?
Yeah, I do. There really could be something to this. I mean, ever since really everything happened with Kim Pegula, right? Because I thought Kim was kind of really involved with the Sabres as well, right? I think these kind of questions in the back of my mind have always opened up about what's the long term. Yeah, what does this team look like long term with a guy like Terry Pegula, right? So at this point, he's not putting all the money into certain aspects of the franchise that we need to. Like Student said, he could be he's trying to make it more look like more of a profitable option for an investor to come in and take this over. But again, the other part of that too, and we've been down this road with this franchise before, Matt, where we almost relocated. And I hate to even bring up that word, the dirty R word, right? Like, do we ever think it could get to that dark of a place? I mean, I certainly hope not.
So here's my thing.
If we're not drawing, right? And we have great fans here, but at some point, they're getting disconnected. Like, we don't have that same, right? This city is so Bill centric now, which I understand, right? But the Sabres have definitely taken a back seat in so many ways. Like, do we have that new generation of Sabre fans that are gonna say, I got to go to Sabre games, I got to go see this team?
I think you will have that. I think the worst case scenario is maybe they, if a relocation was to happen, you'd probably see another team back in Buffalo, probably with the Sabres name, probably, within a year or two. Like it's just get a new ownership group in there, get, new management in there, get the Sabres, the expansion team, et cetera, whatever happens. But I don't see that personally happening. But I mean, I would not put it past the NHL. Let me put it that way. I would not put it past the NHL to try and get the Sabres back to like a winning organization. Because we always say it on here is hockey is so much better when the Sabres are a good team.
Yep. I mean, look at this. Like what Dale said. Could you imagine if both buildings were rocking right now? I mean, imagine that springtime when the party in the plaza and the whole.
And the messed up thing is they were at the beginning of the year. Yeah. All this great,
we're starting to see it, right?
Yeah. All the greatness within there. All the greatness within there is, all the good faith bringing in Lindy Ruff and everything like that is gone now. We're in December. We're just in December, halfway through December. We still have 50-something games left of the season. Like, what are we doing here? Like, what is going? Like,
now, I'll tell you what. We'll back up a second here. Let's put a little positive into this morning, right? Which I know has been really difficult to do with this franchise, right? We've lost 6 1-goal games, right? We've had a lot of games. Let me put it this way. Let me do a what if for you. If we hold on against Colorado, right, and if we hold on against Detroit, are we as upset this morning right now with even just 3 more points? Look at the standings, okay? And if you look at the standings, and if we go up 3 points, we're up to 29 points, and we're right there in the middle of the muck with Ottawa. We're right back where we were before, right? I just think if you look at that, and the other thing is you look at our power play numbers, which are abysmal, right? We're at 14%, Matt. We're third. There's only 2 teams worse than us, the Islanders and the Bruins, and we see how they're doing this year, right? So when I used to work with the New Jersey Devils years ago in the 90s. You remember Jacques Lemaire? He was an old coach for the Devils. I'm going way back now. But he won a Stanley Cup with the Devils. And his thing when you look at special teams, you know what he looked for, Matt? He said you looked at the percentages. You took the penalty kill and the power play. You want to take the penalty kill minus the power play or so, and you want it to be positive. Like, if your power play's 19%, you want your penalty kill to be 85%. And it nets like a +4. You know what I mean? And you look at the Sabres right now, we are 80% on the penalty kill and 14 on the power play. So that's a -6. So on the special teams, we're behind. And we're losing all these one-goal games. Imagine if our power play was even 20%, which is not even in the middle of the pack of the league. It's like, towards the middle. I think we probably have about 4 or 5 more points. So there's still certain times we watch the game, right, Matt? And we're playing well. Like, we outshot the Rangers 16-4 in the third period. We showed some signs, right? But there's just
I have it up on the screen. I have the standings up on the screen. I mean, we're all talking doom and gloom and everything like that, and I get it. I think it's coming from like the 13 years prior, because the Sabres were at this point so far out. It's not like it's like, they can win 1 or 2 games and they're back into it. This year, it's different. They can win 1 or 2 games and they're right back within the wild card, because Philadelphia is at 32 points. You have Tampa Bay rated 32 points. Even to go into the Atlantic, you're talking the Boston Bruins are only at 33 points. So you're only 7 points out of a third spot, which is absolutely crazy to me.
Mm-hmm. Like, dude. That's pretty funny, though. I must say, we're one more 8-game slide from Sabres ticketing department turning into Groupon.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we
gotta laugh because we're in this together, so it's actually kind of true. Oh,
yeah. Man. So I mean, let me kind of bring it back now, because we did get off track a little bit with the microphone issues and everything like that for you. But what do you think if the Sabres were to go out and put a waiver claim in on Oliver Wahlstrom?
I would not hate that. I mean, he's just one of those guys.
He's a right wing with a right-handed shot, 6'2", 204 pounds. Former first round pick, 11th overall. And I mean, if you can go get a player like that, and it's going to cost you as part of your cap space, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you at least take the chance?
Yep, 6'2". I mean, like you said, he's a number 4 pick overall. He's had some decent years, and he's been a little bit of a disappointment, but I need, you know what I need in this team, Matt, and we have it. We need a little bit more of Jason Zucker, right? And you look at Jason Zucker's comments after the game the other night, and you listen to Tage Thompson's comments, and you listen to Jason Zucker's comments. Now, listen, no offense to Tage, but see, that's where you see the difference in the age, right, Matt? Tage Thompson's a little bit younger. Tage Thompson really wants to win. I don't question his work ethic or his desire to win. I don't think that's the issue at all. But then you hear Jason Zucker, who's been in the league for a long time. He's played for the Penguins, organizations that have won a lot, right? And he gets it, right? If we could just get another player or two like that, like, we need a better pairing with Owen Power. We need a tough, rugged guy that's going to show Owen Power, hey, you got to get your body in there. You got to make something happen. You don't have to be a fighter. But he's just got to be. He's 6'6". He should not be so tentative, right, Matt? And maybe he's overthinking things at 21. Maybe it's a psychological thing. But I just need Owen Power to get a little more physical. He doesn't have to be, like Darlene physical, right? But just
I think he needs to be up there. I think he needs to be up there as far as physicality. And I'm not sitting here saying, because when we grew up with hockey, speaking of real quickly, 52 years ago, I saw it on Sabres Classic. Do you remember, just quick trivia, do you remember what happened yesterday, 52 years ago? What flight and what epic image happened 52 years ago?
52 years ago?
Yeah, 1972. December 13th, 1972.
Was it? Oh my goodness! You're going back to the Gilbert Parallel days, man. You're going back to like
rookie Jim Schoenfeld knocking Cashman through the Zamboni. Opening the Zamboni doors. So we're not talking about going back that far and bringing this team back there. But all we're talking about is when somebody's coming through your end with their damn head down, fucking make them pay for it. There is zero reason you should not make them pay for that. Put your shoulder in their chest, and if they get hurt, oh well. Like, they shouldn't be skating through your end. You get paid as much, if not more, than them to put them on there, stand over him and tell him to keep the damn head up, because it's 100% true. Like, you should not be allowing these guys to skate through the middle so unscathed. You can't do that. Because, and I'm not saying, you go to hit McDavid and he makes you look like an idiot. I'm not talking about trying to line up Connor McDavid. I'm talking about some of these guys that keep their, have their head down, and they're so not worried about Sabres players hitting them that they're just dangling with the puck and just, whatever. Like, make them pay for going through the middle of your ice.
Yep, absolutely. I just want to welcome Victor here, because it's the first time I've seen him comment. I think this is a great comment. Maybe going on the road is the best thing for this team. Road games bring something out of these guys. Home has never been a true advantage. I agree with you, Victor. I think that's, and even Dale agrees with that too, I'll give you an example. When Toronto always comes to town? Has anybody ever seen our record at home against Toronto? We're amazing. Again, because I think this team say, wait a minute, we got all these Toronto fans coming in. Maybe they feel a little disrespected. Gets that little edge going, right? Like, maybe they, maybe at home, with the Boo Birds and it's kind of quiet, on certain nights, right? Maybe it's better if this team just goes on the road and kind of clears their head. Listen, we went 3-0 in California, right? We came all the way out.
It can't be that way. It cannot be that way. It cannot be that way, and it's absolute a bullshit excuse. I understand that, yes, it might be a good medicine. Get these guys into a hotel, get them in with each other, get them whatever. But you're at home. You just had a 5-game homestand, and you've never gone 0-for on a homestand. You lost every single one of those goddamn 5 games for no reason whatsoever. You were up 4-0 against Colorado. You were up against the Wings twice by 2 goals. You cannot do that in this, because like you said earlier in the show, you hold on to those 2 games.
Yep.
That's 4 points. You're 2 points out of a playoff spot, or out of the wild card spot.
Yeah, we're still a little bit, we're still a little bit upset, in certain cases in certain games, but we're not as, we're like, okay, it could have been better, but it could have been worse. We're still there, right? 8-game losing streak is a long losing streak. Now, granted, we did get a couple points here and there with some overtime points and all that, but that's not, we needed to, if we sprinkle in just 2 wins in there, I know it's a lot of what ifs, but there's still, I just think, Matt, I just think this team lacks the true maturity and experience to be a winner. Remember we were talking about the average age. I'm going to give you a few teams here. You ready?
Yep.
The youngest teams in the league: Buffalo, Montreal, Philadelphia, Utah, Anaheim, and San Jose. What do they all have in common? They're all in the playoffs, right? They're all not there right now, right? They're still trying to find their way. Now, the oldest team is Edmonton, who's 30, right? Now, up at the top, it gets a little weird. Nashville and Pittsburgh are old, and so are the Islanders, right? But the sweet spot is right about 28 years old. You got teams like Winnipeg, Dallas, Seattle, Washington, Devils. You see where I'm going? 28 years old. They're all 28.7, 28.6, 28.5. Vegas, 28.2. See that 3-year difference?
I do understand it to a point. Difference. I do understand it to a point, Brian, but I will also say that that's also it's skewed a little bit, because like one of the only things that I agreed with in Kevin Adams' press conference is when he said, when he got asked the question about the age of the team, and he goes, we could have gone out and signed Craig Anderson, and that bumps up our team age. Sure, absolutely, it makes it skewed. That's fair. Because you get some of these guys that are on Edmonton, like Jeff Skinner, 31 years old or whatever. Evander Kane, or I'm trying to think of anybody on the all those guys are getting up there in age, so it's bringing up their age where they just got Matthew Savoy. They just so it kind of rounds out a little bit. Like, I get that, but that's a good point. That's one of the it does make that kind of a little bit skewed. But at this point right now, it comes down to it is a lot of these guys have been in the league for a while now. Like, we know as far as goaltenders, I get it. You're not really like getting into your prime or the beginning of your prime until you're 24, 25, 26 years old. That's right where UPL is right now, and you can really see it. He's starting to track the puck well. He's starting to play out of out of his mind again. And, it's unfortunate that they couldn't put up more than a goal or two until the last 10 minutes of that game against the Rangers.
Yeah.
What are you doing? But
yep. You're right, and it's getting the right talent here, right, to get that number correct, right, Matt. You're 100% right. It's like the Jason Zuckers. Like if we were able to find, Dallas has guys like Matt Duchene. Like I'm talking about players like that, guys that have solid backgrounds and pedigrees from winning organizations that are 31, 32 that fit in the right spots, right? That's right. That you're 100% right. It's not just okay. Let's sign a 40-year-old and get our number up, and then we're going to magically take a cup run. No, it's definitely not that for sure. I 100% agree with you.
It's the other thing I wanted to talk about real quick with you is how do you feel about this organization taking criticism right now?
Not very well. The whole thing with the palm trees. Now they don't want palm trees in the building. I mean, you got paying customers coming through your building. I'm not. Listen, if Sabre fans want to put up a palm tree sign or something like that, I'm not going to stop them, right? Because they're still coming into my building and still consuming my product, right? They have a right to voice their displeasure about where the franchise is going. They're very sensitive about it. And I get it. Listen, I know that they want to win. I don't question Kevin Adams' desire to win. I don't. I think his heart is in the right place. It's just I don't think he has the tools he needs. Like he needs a president above him, someone with a lot of experience to say, "Hey, Kevin, work with him." I'm not talking about Jason Carmanos, this assistant GM. I don't know what he's doing. Yeah. They were hyping him as some great hire, and I really haven't seen it.
Well, he is, but I mean, and I'm going to touch on my point with the that stuff real quickly. But first, we brought this up earlier about talking about president and GM and coach. I think you have three guys that can be put in those roles at this point, because I think if you because Kermanos came from the Pittsburgh organization, everything like that. He came, he's basically Ray Shiro and everything like that. He's like one of those disciples. I get it. So maybe move Kevin Adams up into more of the president role, where it's like, okay, you don't have control over trading with people. You're not talking to the Minnesota GM on a day-to-day basis. You're not talking to Florida GM on a day-to-day basis. But Kermanos can come to him and be like, hey, I have this trade on the table. Let me get your opinion on it, or anything like that. And I think if you structure it where Kevin Adams is the hockey ops, and then you have Kermanos in there as GM, and then you have Lindy Ruff as your coach, I think that's a better move than what we have going on right now, because then you kind of have, and then Kevin Adams and Terry Pegula can go, pick daisies together and do whatever they want to do and talk about the Sabres out, and listen to the game on the phone with each other, whatever the case may be. But I truly think that structure is better than what they have now, because Kevin Adams cannot. He's proving to be almost as bad as Darcy Regier was in his last few years since his blunder with Briere and Drury. So in just him saying that the whole palm trees and taxes thing was as bad, if not worse, than trades are hard. Like, I'm sorry, that is like I was like, holy cow, I'm seeing another Darcy Regier, and it's, to me, it bothers me, because this team is in a position right now. They were in it 2 years ago, where they are a playoff team, and you didn't do anything to improve the team. You add Jason Zucker to that team from 2 years ago, I think you're talking a playoff team. I really do.
Yep. Yeah.
Why wasn't somebody like that acquired at the deadline? No, you go out and get Chad Greenway and throw him on the fourth line for every game, and expect to try and bump yourselves up. You beat Carolina, who was one of the top teams that year. You beat Carolina in with Devin Levi, with a rookie goaltender, to try and make make the playoffs. And what my problem is I think that Kevin Adams is more looking at it as, oh, I have job security. No, you don't. No, you don't. No. And if you do, then Terry Pegula better go hide himself somewhere, because if Kevin Adams has job security, then you're not doing right by the people that put butts in the seats, or put their butts in the seats, and spend their hard-earned money.
Tell me where it makes sense that Kevin Adams should be up for a promotion at this point in this organization, right? I mean, you know what I mean? It just doesn't add up for me.
And it's not even necessarily a promotion. I think president of hockey ops is more of a, I'm going to get you out of the way, but I also still do trust you to do certain things. So I don't really view it as a promotion. I view it as him moving into more of a role that's more suited for Kevin Adams.
Yeah.
And then you bring in Kermanos, who is more of the guy that he comes from the Ray Shiro, coach, or the GM tree, and you could kind of put him in there. And then he also has a lot of those guys that he can bounce things off of.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely.
So, but to get back to my point as far as the palm trees and everything like that goes, it was Bulldog the other day, and I don't listen to them very much, just because terrestrial radio is kind of going by the wayside and whatnot. But and then I can't stand listen to them hang up on people when they're trying to take their time out of their day, wait on hold for 30 minutes, and then get hung up on after about 15 seconds because they're not making a good enough point to be on the radio. Mm-hmm. Neither here nor there. Bulldog said the other day is this team, they should kind of embrace the palm tree thing, and kind of use it as kind of a rallying cry. Look what the Pirates did in baseball a couple years ago with Jobu or whatever from Major League. Look at what the Florida Panthers did in their cup run in '96 with the Rats.
Yep.
Like, these are things that if you kind of start to embrace them, and our idiot GM said, these things about palm trees. Let's put a palm tree in the locker room, and we'll try and start to make jokes about it. And once you kind of like, it's kind of like one of those where you kind of fake it till you make it type situation. We're gonna look at this, and we're gonna be laughing about this 3 months from now when we're winning 5 games in a row or whatever, because we're gonna use it as a rallying cry to come together and whatever. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that something like that is gonna work or anything, but they have to do something. They have to try something, because they're not getting players in here. They're not changing philosophy. Lindy Ruff is not changing up his top 2 lines all that much. He's moving one guy here or whatever. Mm-hmm. They're not changing goaltenders. They're not doing the thing. They're not changing philosophy on the ice. They're not changing coaches that are behind the bench that shouldn't be here in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's just a lot of habits that have been developed by some of these young players, right? We just have, right? We have, like I said, these guys are talented. They've been here a while, right? You would think, but they've never been taught or told the right habits, right, on how to win. I saw an article recently, the Washington Capitals. They've surprised everybody this year. A lot of people thought that the tires were going to fall off the car. The Capitals were going to go miss the playoffs, right? But they, what they attribute all their success to? The leadership and the veterans that they brought in that room, and some of the young guys. And you see some of these young players like Connor McMichael just explode, right? I mean, what if we had that for a Peterka? What if we had that for a Jack Quinn, right? Jack Quinn didn't suddenly forget his elite shot is still there, right? It's here. It's all, and when it's up here, Matt, and the old coach, the great Bobby Knight, what game's 90% mental. I think with the Sabres, it really is right now. And I think we see it in their home games. They're feeling the pressure, and they don't know where to turn to kind of. And I agree with you. I think we should be embracing these things now at this point, saying, "Hey, okay, you want to bring in palm trees? Go right ahead. That's fine. Motivate this team. We're going to show you. Get mad, get upset about it, right? I want to see some frustration and anger, true anger. Not.
I want to see in March. I want to see hundreds of those stupid palm trees needing to be picked up on the ice because the Sabres are scoring goals.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, like that's I want to see the type of situation where you have the octopus going on the ice, the rats going on the ice, any of that type of stuff that's always been there that for other teams that the Sabres are just like we don't have anything. We're gonna blow the smoke out of the Sabre up, and they even took that away.
Yep, I want to see a luau in front of KeyBank Center this spring, right?
Yeah, right. Cranking the pig around and
do champions on set. Be you, student, and even we'll have Dale on the set. To have such a luau in front of the KeyBank.
Yeah,
Center. And I'll fly over. Why not, right? I mean,
but in all joking around though, but it's being serious. If these guys have a way to, kind of rally around each other and play for each other and finally realize, like you were saying, like Jason Zucker's like, hey, I know how to get out of this. We're not playing to the standard that we could. How about you guys try and play for each other? How about you guys try and like build something around each other and change the culture and it can happen. You're going to have bad games here and there. But at this point, you have to realize, as not only Kevin Adams, not only Lindy Ruff, but also as the players on the ice, that they have to realize, hey, we're only 6 points out of a wild card spot. We have to continue moving forward and, not worry about the standings so much, but we also have to start to play together. Like, we have to realize that we're only that far out. Let's not worry about what's going on with the standings. We'll check back in at the All-Star break, but let's play for each other and let's continue going. And, the things with the players, whoever's coming in, whoever's going out, that stuff will get handled by the people that are the ones that are supposed to be handling it. We just got to play together on the ice and continue building the culture and continue building this team to a point now where, hey, we're starting to win. Hey, and this is stuff that should have happened a month ago when the Sabres were, starting to win and starting to put goals in and starting to, and I really do think a huge detriment to this team was truly that Avalanche game. It really was, because if you score a single goal in that game, they're not coming back. After it was 4-0, after it was 4-1 and then 4-2, if you score a single goal, they're not coming back. They started building that, hey, we scored 1. Hey, we scored 2. We're only down by 2. Now we scored 3. Now we scored 4. Now, it's the last 2 minutes of the game. We scored 5. We now won the game.
It's kind of weird that we almost chased the goalies too quickly in those games, right? I almost wish they put up 4. It went to the end of the second period instead of so quickly, where the Avalanche, got rid of Georgiev, who was a disaster, right? And they put Wedgwood in, and then he's just playing lights out. So, that happens. But one thing I wanted to pivot to really quickly, is the upcoming week. Now, remember and I want to thank everybody in the chat. It's been great. Victor brought up that great point about going on the road or playing, and we got 4 games this week that are difficult, and the arena should be full in every scenario. So it's going to be a little bit more lively. Maybe this is what this team needs. I'm going to give you the 4 games. You ready? Washington tonight.
Hold on.
Go for it.
We gotta pay a couple bills real quick before we get into this last segment here. So we want to thank Elite Apollos for sponsoring us. 3785 South Park Avenue, 14219. We have Sons of Erie. We have Beauty Pools. We have Kayak Pools. We have W.GG, the officially energy drink of Dew Champions. We have who else? Fubo TV. We have John Palmer Construction. I have their actual name somewhere. I have a graphic. I'll get to that next time we have our show. Nice. They are Hockey Hotline's new title sponsor, so we'll have that here for you next time. But we want to thank everybody, CX Chronicles, Sons of Erie. Definitely want to thank all of our sponsors. I'm gonna have to get a list because man, we're getting to a point where we have a lot of them, and we want to thank every single one of them. Hamburg Brewing as well. So with that being said, let's talk about like you said, let's talk about the games coming up here for the Sabres. I know we have one tonight at 7 p.m. against the Capitals.
Yep, we have the Capitals tonight, and then tomorrow we're going up to QEW and going up to play Toronto. Who's been one of the best teams in the league this year. And then Tuesday we go to Montreal to play the Habs, and then Friday night Toronto comes into Buffalo, which is of course going to be a strong home game for Toronto. But looking at these games, tough matchups, Matt. Montreal aside, right? That's a game we have to win. But maybe these Toronto games are what we need right now, right? Building's going to be hot in both scenarios, right? It's going to maybe it kind of ignites the Sabres here a little bit in terms of, hey, take that, like you said, that rallying cry, right? That we talked about, right? To be that Lindy say, hey, teams, everybody's going to be against us. Nobody's going to be rooting for us. You don't have to hear the boos and the palm trees and all that. No, you're going to see 15,000 Toronto fans in the building Friday night who pay an exorbitant amount of money to come over the border.
Here's the issue, though.
Disappointed.
Here's the issue, though. You're probably going to see palm trees in Toronto. Because they're the type of fans that are gonna take that stuff and they're gonna run with it, and their ownership / arena / whatever allows them to do that type of stuff, that type of fun stuff. So you might actually hear more of it from them than you would hear at home.
Very true. Very true.
On top of that, too, the other thing that I want to say real quickly about Friday's game against Toronto. Stop selling your fucking tickets to Toronto fans, for the love of God, please.
Yeah. And listen,
I'm so sick of seeing the...
Yeah, sadly, but with these apps now, Matt, and the amount of money these fans can get for these tickets now, I can't blame them. I cannot blame them at this point. I know I hate it. I can't stand it, but you know what? Maybe this is like what they said, what our guys in the chat said. Maybe this is what we need right now. Let them be upset. Let them go into that building, see all these Toronto fans, say, hey, this is unacceptable. I'm going to show them. We're going to show them tonight. Send them home. Good.
What's different the last 13 years?
Not much.
That's what I'm saying. Like, at some point, fans have to realize it's on them too to make sure that these tickets get into the hands of Sabres fans, right? And not these scalpers or whatever.
Honestly, though, I will admit, let's be fair. Even if we were 10 games over 500 right now, Toronto fans are going to invade anyway, because you almost need to take out a personal loan to afford Toronto tickets at this point. You're seeing their prices? Oh, I mean, their prices are unbelievable for their games. So those fans are going to say, I could just take a quick trip over the bridge, right? I could go to Buffalo, and even if I'm paying $200 a ticket or $250, for them, that's way cheaper than going to Toronto. So unfortunately, they're still going to do it.
No, right? I get it. Right. I get it. I wish it was less. I wish it was less because
like 50-50.
Last year, I think I counted like 6 Sabres jerseys in the lower bowl in one of the Toronto games.
Wow.
Like I'm like they're panning around, and it's blue and white Toronto jerseys, and it looked like what is it, the Rogers Center, the Bell Center, or I can't remember who.
Air Canada, I can't remember what it's called.
But
I'll go back a ways here. Yeah.
But seriously though, I mean it's true. You can't. I would just like to see the lower bowl be like 50-50 or at least more than a handful of Sabres fans in the lower bowl. I get they're expensive for Toronto games, and I get they're one of the best tickets you can buy for a Sabres game, and what Toronto fans will willingly pay for these tickets because they have a lot more disposable income in Canada than we do here in the United States at this point right now.
Yep. By the way, Scotiabank Arena is what it's now currently called. I always forget these. But it's funny. I was just going on. Although, I mean, you could sit in the top bowl for this game for a 177 Canadian, last row at the top.
So you're talking like 140 for
140
US.
Yeah, which is but if you go just a little further down, they start getting to like even upper deck, first 2 rows, almost 300 a piece. I mean, that's pretty steep. And we're talking about a game, a December game on a Sunday afternoon.
Right.
I mean, wow. I mean, But yeah, but tomorrow we got a double dip. We got a little Sabres Leafs, and then we got Bills Lions to showdown tomorrow. So we got hopefully a good day tomorrow.
Do we get a one Buffalo this weekend?
I guarantee a win over Detroit Sunday. How does that sound, Matt?
I am I am not allowed to do that because every time I pick the Bills this year, they've lost. So
no, we are winning. You know why we're going to win this Sunday? Because it doesn't make sense, right? I feel like every time we get right, it's like, but listen, great teams respond, right? You want to be that Super Bowl team, or we're not making this all a Bills show, but we're going to get our licks in. If you want to be that Super Bowl team, if you want to be what we think that they are and what they think that they are, you go out and find a way to win in Detroit on Sunday. And I think
I do agree. I said last night on Third and Manageable, though, I have the Lions winning 35-32. But with that being said, how do you feel tonight's game is going to go against the Capitals? Because we talked about it with their leadership and everything like that. And are they still Ovi-less?
I don't believe so. They're 20. They have 20 wins, 6 losses, and 2 ties. Plus 36 on the goal differential. Washington's having incredibly here.
Well, what I meant is, are they still Ovi-less?
Ovi-less.
Yes.
I believe. I'm gonna check. I think they are. And which is even more amazing, right? I mean,
he broke his leg in like 2 spots and was already skating around after 2 weeks. I'm like,
yeah,
them Russians, man.
They're
built bionically.
Yeah,
they're built
hockey
bionically.
Players in general too. We could take it even further. Even hockey players in general are just.
I mean, also too. Speaking of Russians, please answer me why the hell Alex Mogilny is not in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, let's not even go there. That we need a whole segment for that. I mean, that's. Well, I think we know why. Because he is Russian. I'm just going to say it. But there is a little bit of that. I believe in Hockey Hall of Fame.
Why wasn't he put in 5 years ago then? Like before all this stuff.
It's hard to say. Now, is he one of those guys that gets kind of lost in the shuffle in terms of the era he played in? He was kind of in between 2 eras, and maybe he doesn't define. It's hard to say, but yeah.
That 76 goal year was one of the best scoring years by any player that's ever played this game. Mm-hmm. And yes, he was tied with Teemu Selanne that year, who was a rookie. But I mean, let's be serious. Like that was one of the best goal scoring years I've ever seen myself personally. And I've said it multiple times. I've watched Gretzky. I grew up watching Lemieux, living in Pittsburgh. So I mean,
Yep. He had 473 career goals. Right. That. You know what actually also hurt McGillney that a lot of fans may not remember? He lost a year and a half of games due to lockout and strike. Right. He gets those games. He's over 500. He's in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And that was right in the prime of his career too, when he had 76 goals in '93. He had 55 goals in Vancouver. Before he had 40 goals with the Devils. I mean, he's had some big years. He had almost 40 with us twice. I mean, he was just a dynamic player, and he played in sort of a dead puck era there too, where goalies are ruling the day. So I couldn't agree more. He should be in the Hall of Fame. Maybe someday he will. He's over a point a game player. To me, he should be there.
Yeah, I agree with you. So, were you able to find about Ovechkin? Because
he's out. Yeah, he's out.
Okay.
Yeah, he's out.
Okay.
So no Ovechkin, but again, that team is clicking on all cylinders. Some of their young guys, the veterans, are stepping up. The guys like Chikrin. I don't have a great feeling about tonight, to be truthful. I do think we split these games on the weekend, though. I'm going to call it. I'm not sure which one we're going to win. I do think we're going to get to, and then at Montreal is probably the key to this whole 4 games. We got to win that kind of game. Yeah. Right. If we could get that win, and
just because it doesn't make sense. Just because it doesn't make sense, I think we'll watch the Sabres go out and win tonight, win tomorrow, and lose on Tuesday to the Habs.
Yep. You know what I need more than anything else this week, Matt? I need consistency.
Yeah.
Even if we go 2-2, if they just play consistent game in, game out, like let's say Sunday they play Toronto, right, and their goalies have been playing really well, Wall and Stolars. Let's say Sabres play a really strong game, physical, right, playing because it's 60 minutes. If Stolars gets 38 saves and we lose 3-2. Hey, it happens, right? Sometimes the other goalie's just better. You tip your you tip your stick and say, okay, that's it. But I just want to see this team come out with purpose. I want to see them come out with direction. I want to see that jump in their game in these situations to react. That's what I'm looking for. We've talked about, we got to go 3-1. Listen, we need all 4 at this point. We need something but I don't believe that's realistic with that schedule. But
let me ask you
I'm
this.
looking for a strong week from this team.
When we have our show next week, when we start it out,
yep.
How many points do you think that we'll get in these 4 games? You have 8 total points you can get. How many do you think are needed, and how many do you think the Sabres will actually get?
I think we need 6, but I think we're going to get 4.
Okay. I'm of the same mind. I think that we need 6. I think we're gonna probably get 4 or 5. I think that there's probably gonna be because for whatever reason the Sabres do always play well against Toronto.
They do.
For whatever reason, Dylan Cousins, you may see, in the 2 games between tomorrow and Friday, you may see a couple goals from him. You may see probably 4 points from him because for whatever reason he plays well against Toronto. He plays physically against Toronto. He gets back to playing his game for whatever reason against Toronto. I could see the Sabres taking 2 points total from Toronto in those 2 games, and that leaves you kind of needing to get 3 points from the other 2 games, to get to 5. But so I expect us to get minimum 4. You probably need 6 to keep yourself within striking distance of the wild card spot. To keep yourself within striking distance of the Bruins there in the third spot in the Atlantic. My last and final question before we get out of here, Brian.
Sure.
What do you expect, or do you expect any moves tonight? This week?
No, I think, unless we lose, if we lose 2 more in a row, and if we get to 10 in a row, I would not be surprised if we fire Kevin Adams on Monday or Tuesday. I would not be shocked.
So let me ask you this. Would you be more surprised if he still had a job on Monday or Tuesday if they lose to the Capitals tonight in the
Yes. I think we would elevate maybe Camaros to a GM role, potentially in an interim situation. Or maybe we just go GM-less for a little bit and then we do a search. But I do think if we get to 10 in a row, I think the noise will be so strong. I think this team's got to make a change. I mean, I know it's the holidays time and all that. You don't really like to make those changes, but this is the NHL. Who
cares?
This is the National Hockey League. This is the top 0.1% of the profession.
It's not like you're going out and firing somebody that you're not going and firing what's his face from Christmas Story. You're not being Scrooge. Kevin Adams has a real has a lot of money and whatever from his playing days and
listen, I would love for it not to happen. I would love for this team to turn around. Kevin Adams becomes a great GM. I'd rather have that, to be honest. I think his heart's in the right place, but again, those comments he made in that press conference, they were very smug. They were very snarky. All he had to say about the trades is, to the fans, listen, I truly understand and can acknowledge your frustration. But, but I'm trying, I'm definitely, the effort is there for us to make a trade. Unfortunately, it's a little bit difficult with the cap and see how different that sounds? Instead of, it just the quick comments. Like, he's just got to be a little more articulate and acknowledge the fans. Say, listen, I understand your willingness and believe me, we're trying. Yeah. It's just in this environment with the cap.
Well, and I think that's why he turned around. I think that's why he turned around and kind of gave a little bit of insight to, he couldn't say the player, but, to say, hey, we had this on the table. We couldn't get the player to, move the no trade clause. But also in saying that too, why couldn't you get him to move the no trade clause? Or why couldn't you get him to, agree to come to Buffalo?
Yep.
What didn't you do? Why were you not on a plane or something like that? Or, why were we not trying to, do whatever we could to make sure that he's, waiving whatever or putting us on the the trade list or whatever the case may be, for that player. And, all speculation was it was Martin Necas or Nekas or whatever, however you say his last name.
I know. Sometimes these names in hockey.
Yeah, but something has to be done. You need to replace, and it's not necessarily replacing Jeff Skinner himself as a player. Mm-hmm. You need to replace, because I can't remember who it was, whether it was Mike Harrington or somebody like that, basically saying, you don't need to replace, Jeff Skinner but guess what? You do need to replace the goals, right?
Yes.
You brought in McLeod that replaces Casey Middlestat, sure. You brought in Jason Zucker that's going to replace somebody on the third or fourth line, sure. Mm-hmm. You need to replace Jeff Skinner's 30 to 40 goals a year because you're starting to see it in games that, he probably scores against the Rangers. He probably scores against he probably puts in one against Colorado or the Wings, and you probably don't have those issues that we're probably not talking about an 8-game losing streak if you have somebody that can replace those goals and replace that scoring. You could also have somebody that bring in somebody that's a top 3 guy where you can bring Peterka down one line and get that kids line going again between, because that's truly one of the things that was working with this team, and now nobody will go back to it. They will not, Cousins is struggling, Quinn is struggling, so why not move Peterka down, put Cousins back in the middle, and let him, see what they can do together again.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
And we'll leave that with our final thoughts here. As far as that goes, I want to, the last 2 shows we've really been, I don't want to say pessimistic, because I still think that this team turns it around. I really do. I think it's a long hockey season. I think an 8-game losing streak along the way is unfortunate circumstance, but the nice thing is we're still only 6 points out of a wild card spot, 7 points out of the third spot in the Atlantic. So those are a couple of good things that we can take away. If the team claims Wahlstrom on Monday, I think that might replace. That might give them enough credence to maybe move Jason Zucker onto a top line, or maybe put him on the second line or whatever, and have Wahlstrom be on, play his game on the third line. Or maybe he goes on the second line and creates that havoc that you're talking about, for Quinn and Cousins, so that they can get their game back going. I really do think that he's somebody that you should probably look at bringing in. And because you're, lower end in the totem pole, as far as waivers go, you're probably going to get him if you put a claim in on him, because you don't have very many people below you. But those are my final thoughts on everything. Brian, what are your final thoughts today?
Well, one last thing is, in terms of trades and moves, we just had a trade happen in NHL now. Cam Fowler to the Blues. The Ducks made a deal and they retained some of the salary just now, right? So we could still see some moves, right? The Ducks have been making moves. Don't get me started on the Trouba trade. That was a henchman type move. I'll never understand that how Chris Drury was able to move $11 million off their cap and not have to get rid of anything is like an eighth wonder to hockey world, but I'll leave that alone. But what I mean is we're seeing some moves here, so maybe this prompts some other moves down the line. So there are moves to be made out there, right? We're seeing it. We're seeing some teams do some things. So maybe this, if we did get, like you said, a Wahlstrom or something, maybe that prompts another mover or a trade or two that we see. But Matt, I think the biggest thing with this franchise right now, I know we want to make the playoffs, and I understand that. My biggest thing is, by the end of this year, I want to see this organization have some kind of a really good direction, whether we have a new president or new general manager. You know what I mean? We have some kind of structure in place that we can be confident in. That's what I'm after right now. Even if it did sacrifice us a playoff spot this year, I would do it if that means we're going to be better in the next 3 or 4 years.
Just to really touch on your point real quickly, I'm of the same mind. I could care less. Truly, I just want to see them playing meaningful hockey at the end of the season, in your March, your April. I don't want hockey to be over in January. I'm sorry. I'm sick of that. And if you have a season like you did 2 years ago, where the Sabres are still in it and they miss it by 1 point again, fine. They played consistent. They got the points that they needed. They could have, we could still talk about, Hudson Fashion kicking in the puck, from a couple years ago. But you could have another type of situation like that, sure. But what I'm saying, though, is they did what they had to do to put themselves in a position to potentially get over that hump. They played with more consistency. They showed that they're on the rise and they're beating teams, because you're going to have to beat teams along the way that are at the top of the NHL to get those points, right? So, let's be serious. Let's continue to move. Let's continue to push forward. Let's get out of this 8-game losing streak and kind of push things forward. And that's the last thing I'll say. And with that being said, Brian, I do want to thank you again for joining me here. On Dues Hockey Hotline.
Thank you so much.
We'll be back again next Saturday at 10 a.m. And for myself, Matt Diegert, for Beyond716, Brian, and the Dude Champions Media Network, we want to thank you all for showing up here for us, and we'll see you next Saturday.